Matt Duss served as a foreign policy advisor for Senator Bernie Sanders. He's now the executive vice president of the Center for International Policy. Last month, he wrote about Joe Biden's accommodations of Israel's war in Gaza and how he could shift policy. Matt Duss joins me now. I want to start, Matt, on this sort of political question, because there's state-to-state relationships and there's leader-to-leader relationships, and but there's a specific thing happening right now. I mean, you have now, as of today, former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. This is not a fringe character by any means. This is not like a radical lefty. This is Ehud Olmert saying Israel must cease hostilities and bring the hostages home. He writes, I believe the time has come for Israel to express its readiness to end the fighting. Yes, end the fighting, not a pause, not a temporary cessation of 2, 3, or 4 days, and end the hostility period. And yet Biden is essentially tied to Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition now inextricably.
Yeah, I mean, that is what's so disturbing about this, is that Biden has essentially outsourced decision-making for an extremely consequential war to not just a foreign government, but to one of the most dangerous right-wing authoritarian leaders in the world. And I do use that term advisedly. President Biden has teed up, his presidency as an effort to protect democracy against authoritarianism. And Netanyahu is part of this anti-democratic authoritarian vanguard. And I think, you see his government, you see not just Netanyahu's rhetoric, but other extremist voices in his government, like Itamar Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who are using just outright, language that is pro-ethnic cleansing. And yet, President Biden seems unwilling at all to put any conditions on this war.
There's a political consequence here, too. And again, we'll get to sort of the substantive, but I thought it was pretty interesting when Nate Cohn at the New York Times, they did their polling on Biden, and they found that he really has seen support erode among younger voters. And you can't say, particularly, but that he says for the first time, Mr. Trump leads President Biden among young voters in a Time Siena national survey, 49-43, a big shift from the 21-point lead in our final poll before the midterms or a 10-point lead in our last national poll in July. There's a plausible explanation for the shift in recent months, Israel. Now, I got to be clear here. I think it's a little bit crazy because I can't imagine Donald Trump would be managing the situation in a way that those voters would like more. But it's also clear that this is hurting. There is some political cost he's paying here.
I think that's very clear, and I think the polling has shown this for a while. And I think, what President Biden and his team don't seem to understand is that this is bigger than just a foreign policy issue. For better or worse, the issue of Israel-Palestine, the issue of Palestinian rights, has been taken on board by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party as an issue of social and racial justice. And the outrage at President Biden's handling of this war and his continuing unconditional support for this massacre that we've been seeing for the past 3 months is really off the charts. We see this among the grassroots. We see this among the party's base. We see this actually among staffers in the Biden administration. And I don't want to ever overstate the impact that any foreign policy issue will have on an election. But I think it's clear, if we are talking about an election that's going to be very close, I think we are, this issue could really play. It's not that a lot of these younger voters and voters of color and others who are really taking this issue on are going to vote for Trump. Some of them may. I think a lot of them won't. But one thing they won't do is get out the vote. Yeah. They will not do the grassroots canvassing, the door knocking, the phone banking that is going to be necessary to help Biden get reelected.
One of the things here, I mean, the trap here politically, of course, is that it's true on both sides, right? There's enormous parts of the American public opinion, particularly Democratic Party, that are fully committed to supporting this war, to eradicating Hamas in the goal as articulated by the Israeli leadership in the wake of the atrocity they committed October 7th, and would be angry, right, with the Senate. So I don't want to make it clear, but my question to you is, do cracks in the unity around the war, as sort of personified by Ehud Olmert today, by hostage families now calling for ceasefire, create space for an American president to maybe also have that kind of that kind of space from Netanyahu as well.
They absolutely do. I mean, no one is asking, President Biden to completely, take a different side right now. There is a way to support Israel's legitimate defense, its right to protect its people in a way that is not, obliterating Gaza, as we have been seeing. There is a space for President Biden to pursue a policy that is different than this, that upholds America's relationship with Israel, upholds the security of the people of Israel, but that does not commit the atrocities that we are clearly seeing on the ground in Gaza. And I think that is what the base of the party, and frankly, I think the majority of the Democratic Party's voters are asking for.
All right, Matt Duss, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
That is All In